I'm joined by Greg Engel now, CEO of Organigram Holdings. Greg, welcome back.
Thanks for having me again today, James.
Greg, it's a market characterized by what we can only term as contraction, I suppose, is the most polite way to describe the cannabis sector now. All stocks are on sale. The sector's down by over 50%. How does Organigram view this in terms of its future strategy and plans?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is that the investor base is shifting, right? Investors, and we've been predicting this for a while, certainly that investors are focused more on fundamentals, right? So for ourselves, we've had 4 quarters now consecutively with positive adjusted EBITDA, and we're certainly seeing a shift to large institutional funds that are looking at more fundamentals that you would typically look at in kind of existing industries, right? So, we're really positive about the shift actually in terms of, what the investor base is looking like and moving towards as well at the same time.
Is that because Organigram is soon going to display the fundamentals that attract institutional investors?
Well, we believe we have been. Again, having four quarters in a row of positive adjusted EBITDA, having a strong gross margin, having a very strong balance sheet as well in terms of, and showing discipline in terms of how we manage our balance sheet, right? So, we at the end of our last quarter, Q3, we had $88 million on the balance sheet, but we've accessed to additional capital through more traditional debt, right? So building a more traditional balance sheet, in a syndicate led by BMO, to allow us to access, at this point up to $140 million in debt, but we can increase that up to 170 as our facility is fully built out. So I think, again, that's a more traditional balance sheet that traditional industries would have versus, simply doing equity financing rounds that do have dilutive effects on kind of on an ongoing basis, which is what we had seen historically in the cannabis space. So
sure. In your last financials, I noticed that your average sale cost per gram had gone down, while your costs had not really decreased in that sort of coincidentally. And is that a trend that investors should be concerned about?
No, I think so. I think it's very dependent upon the product mix at the time, right? So, when we look at different products, and we've seen a lot of response to our Trailblazer brand, which is our kind of lower mid-range THC product, especially in provinces like Alberta, so which has an lower average selling price. So I think, a shift away from oils. I mean, we've seen other companies. We actually very early, if we go back to the kind of the first few months after the launch of the rec space, we saw that other than CBD oils, there wasn't really much demand for the current forms of, THC-based oils in the rec space. So we made a decision very early to move away, and those are typically higher margin kind of products, average selling price on a gram equivalent. So I think, it is dependent upon the product load in the quarter, and there's a bit of lumpiness right now in terms of which products you're selling in which quarter. One thing we did do, and again, I think it's one of the advantages we have of being in all 10 provinces in Canada and having close relationships with both the public and private retailers, is we've been able to adapt and adjust kind of to our high demand strains. And I mean, the ability of getting a lot of product out there and getting response is, products like our Rio Bravo, which was Wabanaki in our medical space, which won the award for top sativa in 2017. We've increased our production of that dramatically because we know it's in really high demand, and adjusting to areas like that where you can shift to higher demand products, I think is really important for the future. So,
do you think that the onset of edibles is going to represent a boost to the balance sheet for all cannabis companies who have a product to offer? And what is Organigram's?
Yeah, no, I think we've certainly seen two things have an effect on the growth in the industry. One is kind of the slower than expected rollout of retail in Ontario in particular, but also Quebec to a lesser extent. And we know that retail stores matter in terms of kind of, the consumer experience and purchasing in Alberta. The market there is booming. There are over 250 retail stores. And I think product mix is the second thing, right? So having the edibles and derivative-based products. So our focus is, on derivative-based. We've got a range of different vape pens. I think we've got, we're one of 4 companies with a deal with PAX on the air, which is a leading kind of closed-loop system. We've got our Feather disposable pen, which is having this full range of products is a great technology. And I think, and then we've got, a value product with a 510 cartridge. And I think the value with TransSpring, the company we're getting from, is, we know this unit is, it doesn't leak, it doesn't fail, it's lead free. I mean, we've seen some data out of California to talk about kind of heavy metals in some of the low value products out of China. I think for edibles, we focused on chocolates because we have a team that has a proven experience from Ganong and other companies, and we know that we can produce a premium chocolate, and that's one of the things we're going after, that mainstream premium line, and you can differentiate chocolates, and we know they're one of the 2 leading edibles. We've also got something very unique in a dried powder dissolvable beverage form. So we've created a low molecular weight, water soluble, thermally and kinetically stable additive for both CBD or THC. And the value of being low molecular weight is that it's fast acting, right? So you're going to see an onset of action in the first 10 to 15 minutes, fast to peak and faster onset. So people can microdose and have multiple beverages. And having this dissolvable powder will allow consumers to choose which beverage they want to use. If they want to put it in a tea, they want to put it in a non-alcoholic cocktail. If they're using CBD, if they want to add it to their vitamin water, they can do that. So it's, I think it's pretty unique, and we've had great response from both the public and private retailers on that product as we're talking about bringing it to market in the first quarter of next year.
Sure. Does the faster onset and faster peak also equate to a faster offset?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
So you hit the peak sooner. So instead of a kind of a long, a 60 to 90 minute onset and kind of a 4 or 5 hour kind of offset,
right.
The faster onset in the first 10 minutes, and then the duration of effect is kind of 90 minutes to 2 hours. So what we know is that, if you're a consumer and you're microdosing with a dissolvable powder, you can choose to have 3, 4 beverages over an evening at a social event or wherever, and you'll be able to keep yourself at a moderate level versus, some of the stories we've heard with some of the beverages or edibles out of the US where people, wait 60, 90 minutes, have this effect, which is more than they expected, and this allows this microdosing concept. So it's a great product. We're really excited about it.
Yes, I've seen the effect of too many edibles on individuals who presume that they can handle any quantity of THC. Right. So that's great. I'm curious as to what level are we seeing vape products displace and oils displace premium dried flower since the onset of regulations in the medical space, because that's a longer time frame to measure.
Yeah, we still, when we look at medical, we're certainly planning to launch some of our vape products. And if we look in US states like Colorado or California where they've had kind of existing experience, before, we expect, because a vape pen is very much like a metered dose inhaler, right? We'd been optimistically hoped that we could bring vape pens to market earlier for medical patients, but we're not able to do that, so it won't be till December. But we certainly have seen that be a big transition. We actually think our dissolvable powder has a medical application as well, right?
Sure.
For consumers, because they can, they know, for example, one of the values of dried flower, for example, as a medical patient, if you're looking for pain relief, is a fast onset of action. For an edible product or the oil, the oral oils that are available today, it's got a longer onset of action. So now you can have an immediate effect. And what we may see is people kind of using, either a vape pen in combination with another form that has a longer duration and mixing the two. If I need an immediate pain effect, but I want sustainability, I'll use a combination. So it's exciting.
That is exciting. I'm curious as to has the powder been approved by Health Canada?
So basically, the way the system works is, again, we're an existing oil license. So we made an application for submission to be able to produce these products. And as long as all of the ingredients in it are approved as kind of, if they're a food ingredient, then everything is approved in terms of you can't modify the THC in terms of coming up with a hydroxy form or something. But if it has THC or CBD or other minor cannabinoids that are found in the cannabis plant, and as long as all the ingredients to go into it are approved ingredients, then the product's approved de facto. So.
Sure. Okay, and finally, I'm curious about, and this is kind of not specifically Organigram related, but you would probably know better than anybody. You go to London, England, and every drugstore has a wall full of CBD products that have been approved as a food ingredient or additive or whatever, but there's CBD everywhere. Clearly a lucrative industry. In Canada, we don't have that because CBD has, strangely enough, not yet found itself into a category where it can be made broadly available. How soon till that happens?
Yeah, so there's a consultation process happening right now with Health Canada. So on the consumer health products side, they're looking to kind of advance the regulations to allow broader CBD. So we're very focused on that as a future market opportunity. We've got an agreement with a company called 1812 that is producing high CBD hemp, and we purchased product from them for this year, and we're selling CBD from hemp currently in the market. But we've increased kind of the potential to purchase up to 60,000 kilos of processed flower for next year from their harvest this year. So I think we're going to see the regulations evolve on CBD. We do expect, as you said, when you go to Europe, you go to, if you're in Austria, if you're in England, you see it in, pharmacy chains, in health food stores. And I think what still has to happen in Europe, which we're fortunate here in Canada, is that tighter regulations around production and processing and making sure that the product that's there, because we saw, MJ Biz, for example, published an article that, did some testing of the CBD products in various European countries and found there was a real mix of consistency in terms of the label versus what's actually in it. So, so we know in Canada that's going to be a key part of the regulations. But yeah, optimistically, we expect in 2020 to have a much broader CBD market where you will be able to buy it in pharmacies and possibly grocery and mass merchandise.
Okay, and that should give a real bump to the earnings of all Canadian LPs, shouldn't it?
The ones that are focused on CBD, certainly, and if we look at, how do we evolve the technologies, like, the work we've done on liquids and dissolvable powders, and even, some of the other things that we're working on right now on other food products, certainly we can bring those CBD products to market in a more fulsome, expanded manner. So exciting times for the industry.
Great. Greg, that's a great contribution as usual. Thanks very much for joining me today.
Great. Thanks to see you again, James.